As you work with media in your projects, you're going to be adding video and audio clips to your scenes at different times. Let's take a look at the rules for adding media. Now, adding a video clip and a media clip both act the same way for where they begin and which timeline they're going to be put in. For starters, I'm going to create a new project and just name this media. I need to add an existing media clip. Feel free to use any that you've got, but I've left one in your project folder that if you want to use that, go ahead. The first rule of adding a media clip is if you have a timeline selected, it will always add that media into that timeline at the selected point. I'm going to press F7 to switch to the animation workspace so I can see my timeline a little better, and I'm going to add a new timeline. I don't really care what the name is, and when I add the I don't think so.wave, you'll see that it's added, and when I expand in the tree, the media clip starts at time 0, which is where my playhead was. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to remove it, move my playhead to a different time, and now add it. You'll see that it gets added again to timeline 1 since timeline 1 is my currently selected timeline, but when I expand, now the media clip starts at time 2 since that's where my playhead was. If it happens to insert at a time that I don't want, I can also click the timing bar and drag it left or right to adjust when it's going to begin. You can't modify the duration of the clip, nor can you stop the animation before it's finished, but you can adjust when it's going to start in the process. Let me delete that again. I press Ctrl Z to undo inserting it. The first thing it does is undo the media time, and then Ctrl Z again, and I'm back to my initial state. Now let me come out of the timeline, and if you don't have a timeline selected, whenever you insert a media element, it's going to look over at your triggers and find out if you have a window-loaded event trigger. If you do, it's going to look into that trigger and find the first timeline that has a begin event in it. If you have a window-loaded trigger, and you have some timeline that's going to begin, when you insert the media clip, it's inserted into the timeline that would begin on window loaded. I'm going to press Ctrl Z again to undo that, and I'm going to delete the timeline 1 begin. Now, my window loaded isn't going to start any particular timeline. When I insert the media element this time, it's going to create a new timeline for me, naming that timeline based on my file name. In this case, I don't think so. The apostrophe in don't, as well as each of the spaces, has been replaced with an underscore to get a legal timeline name. My media element has been inserted, and it's been inserted at time 0. The behavior of not having a timeline started in your window-loaded event trigger is exactly the same as if you didn't have a window-loaded event trigger at all. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z one more time, and now I'm going to delete the window-loaded trigger altogether. I have no event triggers at all, and inserting the media creates the window-loaded event trigger. Just like before, it adds a behavior to begin my I don't think so wave timeline, and adds the I don't think so wave timeline for me, putting the media element into it. Now you'll notice with audio clips, if you look at the top, there is actually a small media element that is created. The media element needs to take up space somewhere on your artboard, so when you add it, it's going to get positioned somewhere. Just realize that it has no width and no space, and it won't take up any space in your layout containers, so you can just leave it off to the side and not worry about it. Now if this was a video clip, instead of getting the little 0-sized pixel, I'd end up getting the gray rectangle, and I can position that wherever I want. Keeping track of how your media elements are going to be inserted, as well as how you can easily modify the playtime by moving the bar around in the timeline, are key pieces that you'll need if you're going to work with media in your applications.